There are always things that you will find that will surprise you. When that situation was anticipated to be all bad, there are going to be things that brought you joy or hope or laughter. And when the situation that you thought was going to be the pinnacle of greatness, those situations too also have some points of sadness, disappointment, or sorrow. Welcome to the Love Your Brain podcast, the podcast designed for everyday people who are ready to hop off the negative thought hamster wheel and enjoy a less hostile environment in their own brains. Our brains are where we live our entire lives, and I'm on a mission to help people see that they have everything they need to make it a happier place to be. So join us for this episode of the Love Your Brain podcast. Let's get started. All right, welcome to this week's episode. It's been an interesting 2 weeks for me personally. I've had a strange combination of life experiences that felt like a mix of oil and water. But those experiences and working through them actually reminded me of a gem of wisdom that a therapist once shared with me, and I'm going to share that with you today as well. Now, when I say I had an interesting 2 weeks, I say that because I feel like I've been torn in two directions simultaneously. Now, in one direction, I recently celebrated my birthday, which is great, super fun. I've had lots of celebrations. I felt just so loved, so celebrated. Lots of smiles and laughs and really good times full of goofiness and just fun. And I've just felt so much gratitude for the age I am, the things I've overcome to get to this age, and so many memories that I've logged in these years on this earth. So that's one side of things. Just a lot of positive, fun experiences that I've had in these last 2 weeks. On the other side of life, I've also lost two family members in the last 2 weeks, both somewhat unexpected to a certain extent. And obviously, these situations have brought about a lot of sadness, not just for myself, but being sad also for the other individuals that are no longer going to have that person in the flesh with them anymore. I'm someone who feels grief just not for myself, but for everyone else impacted. And that's been really, really challenging. And in addition to that, as you know, when someone passes away, there's just so many things that need to be taken care of, right? You've got funeral arrangements, you've got notifying people, and unfortunately, sometimes old issues resurface and there's stress with that, and sometimes there's physical things that have to be taken care of in terms of their belongings, and it's just a lot to handle. So as you can see, I've been experiencing really two opposing emotions most of these past 2 weeks. Sometimes they've been happening in very separate moments, isolated in a way where I'm fully sad just thinking about this person and how much I'm going to miss them and how hard it's going to be to not have them around anymore. And then hours later, I'll be celebrating my birthday with friends, laughing and indulging and telling jokes and the like. But there have also been these moments where these feelings overlap. And I'm very aware of the discomfort and the judgment that arises for me when these feelings commingle, positive and negative feelings happening at the same time. And this is really a commonly uncomfortable feeling for people where you feel like you're almost being torn in two different directions. But what's crazy is that is actually a part of healthy functioning. And that's what healthy processing of emotions looks like. When you look at it from that perspective, there are a full range of emotions that will happen in any experience that we have. And obviously, in my circumstance, I had two different experiences, right? I had a very positive experience and I had a couple very negative experiences, but it created the same thing that can happen even just from one experience where you are embodying two opposing emotions. And our minds tend to separate certain emotions as being appropriate only with corresponding experiences. So if I'm having a positive experience, I really should only be embodying positive feelings. And if I'm experiencing a negative experience, I really should only allow myself to have negative emotions corresponding with that event. But that is, in fact, going against the complex way in which we were created. Our brains are actually meant to experience a wide range of emotions for any given experience. Think about an individual that you would consider to be healthy emotionally. And maybe you don't have any of those in your life. So let's just paint a picture. Let's say an emotionally healthy person gets a promotion at their job. If we were to have a healthy conversation with them about what they're feeling and just let them be completely honest about with all the things that they're processing, they'll likely say something like they feel joy, maybe excitement, maybe pride, probably a lot of positive emotions that we would normally associate with the experience of getting a promotion at your job. But truly, an emotionally healthy person will also likely report feeling some emotions that also might be considered negative, like fear of the unknown, which happens anytime we start something new, or grief of some of the positive parts of their old job, or maybe just an awareness of the stress this new job will add to their life because of the new responsibilities they're going to be taking on. That is, in fact, how an emotionally healthy person will feel about this new, what we would consider to be positive experience. They will have a mix of positive and negative emotions, and sometimes they might be feeling them all at once. But we don't often talk about this overlap and how normal and healthy they are, and that we are, in fact, designed to feel opposing emotions at the same time. Negative emotions can occur when you're having a positive experience, and positive emotions can happen when you're having a negative experience. All of those parts combined is what we would call emotional wholeness. And that's what I want to focus on today. Now, when we talk about wholeness and being emotionally whole, what that means is that we embrace all parts together simultaneously. In fact, a lot of definitions of the word wholeness itself, you'll see actually talk about wholeness being when parts are interconnected, not separated. The Cambridge Dictionary defines wholeness as the quality of being or feeling complete, not divided or damaged. And let's sit on that idea of separation for a moment because I think it's important. When you're complete, not divided, that's a really important part of being whole. But when we think about separation, about division, we think I'm sad, and when I'm sad, I can feel only negative emotions. We almost tell ourselves we need to transition to a different experience or a different thought in order to then feel a positive emotion. But in fact, these positive and negative emotions are meant to commingle and live together in harmony. That's what brings the balance to life. Life is always going to be part good and part bad, regardless of the type of experience that you're having. And part of being emotionally whole is experiencing many emotions at once, and those emotions commingling together to create a full life experience. But we can miss out on that fullness when we try to keep our emotions separated. And obviously, most of the time, we're just doing this subconsciously. But it can really hinder us when we judge ourselves for feeling emotions we think are not appropriate for the experience. Society and the people around us do a great job at trying to keep us in that place. Think about it. If you think about that example I shared about that person getting a promotion, what would people likely say to that person if they expressed their grief about leaving their old job? Unfortunately, I think I can actually hear it in my head right now. I can hear this narrative of this person responding, "Oh my gosh, just be grateful. You're so lucky. Other people would kill to be in your position. Just be happy about it." Society really wants to keep us very clearly divided when it comes to our emotions. It just makes it easier, cleaner, overall just simpler. Like over here, you can just have happiness, and over there, you're just allowed to have sadness. But to have them together, well, that's just weird. It makes things confusing. But it's not confusing, it's wholeness. And in fact, when we suppress emotion because we don't think it's quote unquote appropriate for what we're experiencing, it can really have serious consequences down the road. They tend to almost symbolically settle in our body and do what I call a little bit of decomposition, where it starts as this one emotion in our body that we haven't fully processed, but then over time it just sits there. It grows stagnant because we're kind of rejecting it. We're not wanting to process it. And as it sits there, it starts to decompose in a way where there's like chemical changes that are happening. And Just like any decomposition, there's like toxic gases that can be let off that affect all parts of you. A similar thing happens when we don't allow emotions to flow through us, but we reject them and apply so much pressure to not feel them that they almost get stuck in our body and cause problems. But if the flip side of that, we can actually just allow all emotions to flow through us without judgment of them, without the resistance. They can do what they need in our body to help us process that experience and then just be gone. They don't have to stay in our body forever. It's about embracing the half of you that's happy, the half of you that's sad, all about one experience and allowing all of those emotions, regardless of whether they're positive or negative, to really flow through your body. And that is the gem of wisdom a therapist once shared with me, is that we actually will feel more whole when we allow ourselves to hold these emotions at the same time. Because we were created to feel both types of emotions, sometimes in the same moment. That is emotional wholeness. That's actually what can help keep us balanced. And realizing that every experience we're in fact meant to feel both good and bad emotions. It's messy, it's not always clear, it's not meant to be clear, and it's not meant to be honestly defined as good or bad. It's a mix of all of those things all at once. That's what makes it whole, all together. Another great way to look at this and being emotionally whole is not having isolated parts, right? As it talked about in the definition. It's all interconnected. There's no parts that are not accessible by other parts. And this goes along with the idea of how parts of ourselves, even that we might see as good or bad, aren't in fact good or bad. They're all just commingling together to make us whole. Being emotionally whole allows us to accept and experience all of ourselves and all of the wide range of emotions and not suppress them because we're in an experience where that emotion doesn't appear to be appropriate. And I love this concept of wholeness too because it relieves a lot of pressure. Like if we go into an experience and in our minds, we're telling ourselves this experience is going to be all good, right? Like it's just going to be a positive, great, wonderful thing. Or on the flip side, we think, oh, this experience is going to be terrible. It's just there's nothing good that's going to come of it. Making decisions and taking action can really feel heavy, right? Like the consequences are overwhelming because it could be all one thing or all the other. Like I'm either going to come out of this experience feeling really good or really bad. And that just makes living life really stressful. But if we can shift our focus to the fact that we are whole human beings having a whole emotional experience, that wholeness allows us to see and appreciate the reality that every experience will elicit both good and bad, sad and happy, both ends of the spectrum. And test it out yourself. Think of an experience that you had that maybe when you went into it, you thought it was going to be all bad or all good. Look back at that experience with a critical lens. Was there anything opposite that you didn't expect? I can tell you, as someone who has had to professionally sit down with people and do this exercise many, many times, there are always things that you will find that will surprise you. When that situation was anticipated to be all bad, there are going to be things that brought you joy or hope or laughter. And when the situation that you thought was going to be the pinnacle of greatness, those situations too also have some points of sadness, disappointment, or sorrow. The universe keeps everything in balance by allowing both good and bad in every experience. So why not embrace it? Allow ourselves to feel the wholeness of each experience as it is. Think about an experience like having a child. It's a wonderful, beautiful experience, right? You're adding this new human to the world. It's really exciting. But also, there's labor pains. There's the stress of having to care for a new human. There's a lot of scary parts too, right? You're also grieving who you once were. Now you're a parent. There's all different emotions that come into play there. And that's much like every experience we have. You are going to have good and bad emotions that want to move through your body in any experience that you have. That's how the universe keeps everything in balance, by allowing both good and bad in every experience we have. So why not embrace it? Allow ourselves to feel the wholeness of every experience as it is, embracing who we are in all parts of ourselves, regardless of what the experience is. If a feeling that surprises us comes up, allowing that emotion to flow through us. Those emotions being able to flow through us, even when we can't explain them or even if they don't make sense, they will tell us things. They will allow us to move through that experience in a more whole way. I think in a lot of ways, some of the trauma that comes from experiences that we have is because we are rejecting the full spectrum of emotions. We're really limiting what we want to feel in that moment because some of the other emotions maybe feel too uncomfortable or maybe not appropriate or whatever the case is. And when we really push back against feeling an emotion, again, it doesn't serve our bodies and that trauma gets stored in our bodies. But if we allow all of those emotions to flow through us, and that's what it is simply flowing through you. This isn't something where you now have to own that emotion and hold it inside of you forever. When we allow the emotion to flow through us, that's what it's doing. It's flowing through our body, it's flowing through our mind, and then it can be released and you can move on. That's what being emotionally whole is all about, is allowing ourselves to experience the full spectrum of emotions, regardless of the experience, regardless if it makes sense to us or anyone else. It's so important to allow your brain and body to process through those emotions so that you can get on the other side of that experience and still feel whole. I really hope this nugget of wisdom helps you today. It certainly helped me as I've been processing through the experiences that I've had this week. And I just hope you have a great week. I hope you allow yourself some time to feel the full spectrum of emotions in whatever experience you're in today. Have a great one. I hope you found something helpful here today on the Love Your Brain podcast. Maybe a laugh or a feeling of validation, or maybe just a few moments to have company while you do your laundry. Whatever you take from it, I hope you enjoyed your time and leave feeling empowered to be more you every day. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the next episode, and leave a review. I'd love to hear what you think. Have a great one.